Firecat Studio is a user experience consulting and strategy firm based in San Antonio, Texas. We have served all kinds of clients from Amazon, Microsoft, USAA, Texas Department of Transportation, big government clients, all the way to small startups and everything in between. What we do is help people make excellent experiences, accessible experiences that are streamlined with human-centered design techniques. And today I am very pleased to introduce you to Richard Gower. If you have not met him, he has a long history of a development career and product career, starting way back at British Rail. He's British. You'll hear that he has a British accent, but we don't hold that against him, and he doesn't hold our accent against us. He also has quite a bit of chops in software product development and project management. So he's a certified PMP, Agile Scrum Master. He also has studied and can present on object-oriented UX, which is a relatively new discipline that's fascinating to learn about. And he's a curious mind and is continually experimenting. In his role as VP of Computing at Deloitte Enterprise Science, he is looking into AI tools and how they can help his company and everybody else do what we do better and safely. So, Richard, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to focus on Richard.
Cool. Thanks, Susan. This is exciting. There's a little experimental here. I had trouble with tools over the weekend, and I picked a new tool, and I thought, why not pick a presentation tool that has AI built into it, just to make it a lot more fun. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll try and keep an eye on it. I'm sure if I don't, Gemma will keep track of it. Yes, there's a lot to cover. I'm hopefully being able to talk a little bit about the AI, the opportunities and risks. Every slide could be an hour presentation, but I will keep it to the hour to honor Susan and your time. Anyway, as Susan said, I've been doing software development for a while. We kind of build custom software. We build SaaS applications. We're been looking at and are working on bringing in AI into applications and tools, which is one of the big focuses that we're kind of doing at the moment. Okay, let's see.
I do have one suggestion.
Sure.
Just before we launch off, why doesn't everybody in the chat say what you're wanting to know about AI? And I'm sorry if I'm getting you out of order, Richard, but I would like for you to understand where is everybody starting from, because then you could spend more time in understanding AI or less, depending on if everybody is, hot and heavy looking into all this stuff like you are, maybe you can go a little faster and get further.
Yeah, and if you want to put some things in the chat as to what you're most interested in, we can focus. A lot of this is, so what I plan to cover is the basic understanding of AI. I think it's really important to understand what AI is doing and why it does things the way it does. And then there's a number of AI considerations we need to take into account, why it doesn't work so well, and when it works well, what it's good for. So I'm looking at some of these things good. I think they're aiming pretty good. So after the issues and stuff with AI, we'll look at some of the opportunities, and then what I'm hoping is that we'll have half the time we'll be kind of looking at some different tools. There are so many tools out there. The real thing you want to do is kind of like get in there and play. So that's one of the things that I'm hoping to get into, but we do need to kind of cover a little bit of the basics first. So real quick, AI. Easy definition: simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems. So what we're trying to do is duplicate what humans do, with computers. Uh, So this isn't something new. AI is we've had for a while. If you know a lot of the data science stuff, USAA, a lot of it is looking at the risk of giving loans and stuff. We've been using AI for looking at the financial. The Mayo Clinic's been using it for healthcare, the insurance, manufacturing, energy, retail. All of these services have been using AI for a while. But more recently, we've got Siri and Alexa, Google Translate, the filters, the spam filters that keep all the junk email out of our Google Mail, and the smart home devices are all using AI. And then, of course, there's all the big services are using AI to be able to sell their products better. So Netflix with their recommendations as to the movies you want to look at. Amazon with trying to say, okay, what is the next product you want to buy? Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Google, Pinterest, they're all using AI behind the scenes and have been for a while to try to make our life easier or to sell more of their product. And then, of course, the autonomous cars is a big one. We're all well aware of, Tesla and Waymo and Cruise, which is the GM autonomous cars. That's basically key to having AI kind of working behind it. So real quick, we've gone through several ages of AI. In the 50s and 60s, that's when it was kind of coined. And the Turing test and kind of like the concepts and things were coming along. And then AI kind of went quiet until about the 90s. And then we started getting Big Blue, which beat Kasparov in a chess game. That was a kind of big publicity thing. And we started getting more into deep machine learning. But then the deep learning, the started in the 2010s. Siri, Alexa came around. OpenAI was formed in 2015. And then we started getting GPT-3 was in 2020. And now the chat GPT. And we've really seen a massive, massive increase over the last couple of years in what AI is. And now it's on everyone's tongue. Before this, we've had other phases. I mean, the dot-coms in the early 2000s was a big phase, but now AI has kind of taken that stage. This tool doesn't have a really easy way to jump between slides. So what we're finding now is because of the changes in the technology, the hardware, the research, we're being able to get AI with it can talk like humans. It can engage with us in human-like dialogue. So it's not kind of like restricted to just the people who understand machines. It can create human quality text. The phrases and everything are readable. It can do it in multiple languages. It can create text, images, music, videos, anything we're wanting, and it can understand those too. It handles a lot of data, and the interfaces that we're getting are kind of crude at the moment, but they're going to go and get a lot more sophisticated as we play with these. What's really fascinating is the rapid uptake. So ChatGPT took 2 months to get to 100 million users. If you have a quick look at this graph, you look at all the other kind of big applications that we all kind of got into, it's taken a long time. But the rapidity that we're seeing with AI and the acceptance, I mean, all of a sudden, it's not just the technical and the geeks that are being able to play with AI. We're all being able to play with it. It's a lot easier from an application programming point of view, but there's a lot of tools that are kind of hitting the market. And of course, it's the favorite buzzword at the moment. And there's millions and billions of dollars getting invested into AI. So some real quick terms. I want to just go over them real quick. So machine learning is where we teach the computers to learn, and it's not explicit programming. So we used to write programs, and we'd have to tell it everything to do. The machine learning is kind of it figures it out that what needs to get done. The generative AI or Gen AI, that's the piece that we're watching and seeing now. It's generating new content. So before we would look at patterns and things. Now the AI is actually creating new text, pictures. ChatGPT is an application that sits on top of an AI model. And hopefully everyone's had a chance to play with ChatGPT. If not, that's one of the best places to start to look at this. An AI model, kind of mathematical algorithm. It's a very technical thing. But all it does is look at patterns and makes predictions on the data that it's analyzed. The large language model, LLM, you'll hear about this a lot. Um, these models are trained on huge amounts of data, so that they can understand and predict what they're going to display. Uh, GPT, this was something that OpenAI created, the LLM that OpenAI created, based on information from the internet, and that's basically a major start that kicked off this trend starting in about 2015. And then teaching the model would basically give the model a lot of data, and it looks at patterns and predictions and uses that to interpret what it thinks should come next. So real quick, if we look at um, just one more term, sorry, before we get into looking at how you build a model. But a token, we talk about tokens. Tokens are effectively words. They're not quite. They're about 100 tokens. Oh, there's a typo. 100 tokens is approximately 75 words. So here, there's an application that will break down a sentence, and it will do it into tokens. These tokens are converted into numbers, and then that is what the model interprets and starts finding relationships. So it's kind of finding relationships between words, but it's finding relationships between these tokens. And you'll see everything, the cost that we pay, and when we subscribe to a lot of the tools are based on the number of tokens you use. So you can imagine if you're putting in a book into an AI model, that's a lot of words and a lot of tokens, which ends up being kind of a high cost. So these are some of the terminology that you'll see kind of bouncing around. There's basically three ways to train models. A few more, but these are the key ones. A supervised model is basically where you give data and you label the data. So I have a picture of a cat. I tell it it's a cat. It's very much like when we teach a child and we say, look, mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, blue. And you just keep on telling it and reinforcing that, not reinforcement, I shouldn't use that term, but you keep on specifying the same word for the same item. Unsupervised is when you give a whole load of data to the model and you just say, go away and figure patterns. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you anything about the data. You go figure it out. And because you've got so much data, you can come up with patterns. So if you think about it, a lot of sentences are very, very common. Certain words go with other words. So the model starts identifying these patterns. Reinforcement training is where you kind of give trial and error, and you reward or punish when they get it right or wrong. So, training dogs is very much an example of, you give it a piece of hot dog when it does something right. And I think we're seeing, I think Gemma's been doing some of this as well, helping train models and verifying how models are by seeing several responses and picking the best one, saying whether it's right or wrong. So supervised training, we kind of mentioned that. So I got all these pictures of cats. I put it into the model. I create a model, and I mention each picture says it's a cat. And then when I pass it a picture of a cat, it goes through and it recognizes and says, yeah, that was a cat. If I give it a picture that it doesn't recognize, it's a picture, it's not a cat. So basically, this is how supervised training. This is what we were using for risk analysis with financials. You'd put in a whole load of information about a person who's asking to take out a loan, and then based on the historical evidence of whether those loans get paid off or not, it can make a prediction whether the new person will pay off their loan. Obviously, it's only as good as the model, and it's a model, and it's making percentages, and sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong. Now, with unsupervised training, we've taken all this data, we put it in the model, and then we pass it something. So in the sense of this, I'm passing it the sky is. And the model would interpret, it would find all of the things that it could come up with, and it finds the word that has the highest probability. It probably is a token. But it would find, oh, it could be any of these words, but its highest probability is blue. Now, it doesn't just look at this sentence. It actually can take a little bit more context. It can take previous sentences, and it can tie things together. But again, it is looking at what is the highest probability of the next word that I'm going to give. And what's amazing is we get whole sentences that make sense. It's amazing it actually works. But this is what it is. And so the key thing I think to get from this is it's all a prediction engine. It's only trying to tell you what it thinks it comes next. So the fact that it works, the fact that we can get complete sentences out of it, we get sensible pictures and they make sense, or a lot of the times they make sense, is amazing. But at the end of the day, it is just a prediction engine. So take that into account when you're using AI. Now, there's a lot of things that are being put on to make them better prediction engines and to make sure the data is accurate. But at the end of the day, it is just a prediction engine. So let's look at the ChatGPT. This is the application. Everyone thinks it sees ChatGPT and AI, the two the same thing. Basically, ChatGPT is an application. It allows a person to put in questions or queries, which we call them prompts. So I'll take a prompt, comes in. ChatGPT basically pulls some system messages, some other information, and it pulls out saved information from that communication, that conversation that you've been having with ChatGPT. It passes it through a moderation engine, a moderation API that goes to the model. Now, this model was pre-trained. It was pre-trained on all of the data. Well, from ChatGPT's point of view, it was trained on a lot of data from the internet, and then it was optimized to make sure it could work with chats. So it knew how to do that. It would then figure out what the response is, and it goes back through this moderation API, which tries to control and not send back things that it shouldn't. So if you're sort of seeing, there's a lot more controls on not getting personal information. Some of the chat engines won't identify people from pictures. So there's a number of things that are kind of being done by this moderation API. And then it comes back to ChatGPT, which sends a response to the person. And then during that whole conversation, it also saves information so that the next time you follow up a question, so the first time you say is, tell me about Italy, and it tells you something. And then the next time say, okay, what is its capital? It will know that you're talking about Italy because it's saved the information. So that information about Italy would have get sent in again. So let's look at ChatGPT real quick. I'm sure some of you have seen this. Let's see if I can. There we go, nice and big. So ChatGPT, we've got a place where we can put in a question and tell me about Italy. There we go. We can do that.
Who all has already used ChatGPT? Let's hear that.
Good. I'm glad everyone's been using that. So that's excellent. So one of the things that I was talking about, the system messages that come in, if you have a look, let's have a look. One of the things that I can do in here is settings, and I can personalize the custom information, and I can tell it that I can give it some instructions about myself, and what I prefer. And then it says, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? So you can tell some information as to how you want to see the responses. So I can put in, I want you to respond in Icelandic. Okay, and so if I was to now say, what is the capital? Oops. It replies, let me increase. So now it has replied in Icelandic, which is probably not what I want every time. And it will keep replying in Icelandic, because I have put it in my settings. So this is a piece of information that gets passed to the model and overwrites what I'm wanting. So let me get rid of that, because that will kind of ruin probably most of the other pieces later. Let's have a quick look. I don't know if everyone realizes ChatGPT originally couldn't do images. Now it can. Show me a picture of a hedgehog. And it will generate, it actually uses DALL-E 3 behind the scenes. And it gave me a nice picture. Oh, it's still replying in Icelandic. Oh. Save it. Oh, because it's the same thing. Yes, and that's one of the things we'll demonstrate a little bit at reading images. So someone has posted that it reads images. It does. You can upload files and images, and they're getting more and more sophisticated and bringing sound in as well. One of just a few other things, I'm not sure if people are aware, they've got some real good business analysis tools. So if I was to go do a data analysis on this file,
Christy wanted to know how AI can help her with spreadsheets. So this is great.
yes, exactly. So here, I just uploaded a spreadsheet. It's actually shown me kind of what it is. It's loan payments, and got a number of files. And if anyone's done data analysis, this is the stuff that you used to do manually. It's telling me how many rows I've got, how many columns, the descriptions of the columns, preview of the data, and then it can tell me, what next steps I should take on it. And you can actually, let's proceed with the detailed analysis. So it's going off, and now it's bringing in the descriptive statistics and all of the other information that is kind of like being analyzed. So yes, if you want a quick analysis of a spreadsheet, ChatGPT will handle that now. So which is kind of pretty amazing. Another thing that you can do, this is a query I did previously. I basically said, okay, I'm doing customer survey. I'm a research assistant. I'm a customer survey for a travel website that helps people plan their honeymoon special trips. The goal of the site is to provide one place to search for different travel options. And I come down and I say, can you ask 20 questions I can ask a potential customer to understand? Let's make most of the questions yes, no, with a couple accepting short. So now it's built me a number of questions that I could put in my survey, and I could send that out to the customer. Now, I then told it to create a CSV file with random answers for 100 respondents. it gave me that. It's not displaying it because I think it's been deleted since then. And then I uploaded this CSV, and it started giving me the analysis of the CSV. So the idea of this is you can ask it just about anything. From your business processes, you can give it an idea and say, what are the project steps should I do? What kind of analysis do you think? Is this a good project idea? What should my next steps be? And it will give you kind of from a business analysis. It's amazing how many pieces of a business analysis you can get done playing with uh, chat GPT or some other of the chat bots. Here it's giving me some insights and recommendations. Focus on simplifying the booking process, enhance personalization. Then I told it quantitative analysis of the data, and it's just giving me an awful lot of responses.
Robert has a comment that I agree with, so I'm interrupting you. He says, ask it for a prompt to do what you want. So when you're learning this kind of thing, it's great to just, it's like if you had a really genius assistant, ask for exactly what you want. We've all gotten pretty good at that with Google prompts, right? Google search queries. For me, it's kind of the same process. The more specific and articulately I can describe what it is I am trying to do, not just like how I would do it, like tell me the top, tell me the rows on this spreadsheet, but tell it I'm trying to find out these insights from this spreadsheet. And I've been surprised at the quality. I keep being surprised by the quality. I would love to know if I'm alone in that, or are you guys also like sometimes this makes your eyes spring open wide?
No, it does. It does a very, very good job. And you can ask it to refine. So here's the thing: you can come up with a prompt, and then you can ask it to refine the prompt. And should I ask you in a different way, right? So it's always interesting. It's interesting to put it in different chat bots and see what the responses are. So, but carrying on from what you were just saying, Susan, from a prompt engineering, this is kind of like building those prompts and the queries. You want to be clear, you want to be explicit, and then you iterate. You kind of refine it, and you be patient because sometimes it'll give you things that you're not really expecting, and then you suddenly realize you've got to be more clear. And some of the things you want to tell it, what is the role the bot plays? So, oh, you're a business analyst. No, you're a UX design specialist. You are, a customer in a retail store. One of the things is the AI has a huge amount of memory. It's got all of this information. If you can start focusing the context that it looks at, if you can narrow down the pieces of data that it's going to be looking at, the better your answer is going to be. So, you want clarity of terms. So you want to tell it what the role you want the bot to play, the context of the query. You want to tell it what you want it to tell you, what other information it should use. You can give it additional information. And then how do you want the output? So how do I want to look? I want it to look like a table. I want it to be an image. I want it to be bullets. I want it to be short and specific. I want it to be, in the third person. All of these things help you get what you want. So here's some considerations. I'll try and go through these real quick, but they're important to consider when you're looking at AI. So hallucinations, this is something we talk about. People are going, well, it's just wrong. Well, remember, it's a prediction engine and it's predicting something. It will always very confidently give you an answer. So the hallucination is a term that we use when you get an answer that it's plausible, but it's not right. So one of the ways you can mitigate that is give it better training data. You can fine tune the model. So that's something outside of what we usually do. But you can give it better context. Of course, always you want to fact check and human oversight. This is the thing. It's like you can't rely necessarily that the data you get back, the responses you get back are always accurate. It will make up stuff. Um, I was asking Ed about the World Cup before the Olympics, before the Olympics, and it was kind of like saying, "Oh, yes, so and so won it, so and so won this," and because it thought that was the right answer. So it's a little scary. Bias. So it's trained on data. If the data it's trained on is biased, then the AI engine will um, perpetuate and carry forward that bias. Now, there's been a lot of work on it to try to fix that, but you got to keep an eye on it. And one of the things is obviously, if you get a more diverse training sets, monitoring, they are improving. Just an example of it, uh, if you originally asked the original engines, give me a picture of a CEO, um, it was going to be a middle-aged white guy, 99% of the time. So that's because that's what it was trained on. That a lot of the pictures it was getting was from that. So bias is a thing that you've got to keep an eye on. Privacy, obviously, we're putting a lot of data into it. Um, and a lot of the people are using the data that it gets to train new models. So they or refine the models. So that's a kind of a big worry from companies. One of the things you can do is you can host your own model. So you can download and host your own model on your own servers, and that will give you a little more security or privacy of your data. Security, there's just like everything else. People are finding ways to attack different systems. Um, so there's a concern that data will be stolen or can be perpetuated. Um, Let me get back to you on the where we can host get models to host. There's a lot of places. There's some better than others. Um, so let's hold that question. So security, it's the same with all security the systems that we're wanting to secure. Transparency, originally a lot of the models don't tell you where it gets the data. So when you're kind of looking at the results, you're not sure, is it real? Is it good? Is it bad? Where did it find it? Now you're finding some of the models are beginning to add that in. Uh, so when you request information, it will give you links. So if you start using Microsoft Copilot and some of those tools, you will start seeing links to where the data was from. I think well, that might be something to put into the prompt as well. Is tell me where you got this data. Now the difficulty is if it's looking for patterns in data, then it may not know. Depending on how it puts that together. But that is one of the challenges is knowing that the data is accurate. Context. So there are a couple of problems with context. One is that it has so much information that it loses track of what the context is that you're wanting. So that's why we talked about a little earlier, is you need to tell it, you need to narrow it down and give it the context that you want it to look at. Another thing is the context window. A chat session only can have so many tokens. There's a finite number of tokens, getting more and more all the time. But as soon as you run out of room in that context window, data will get bumped out. It's kind of like I feel like at my age, some of that information I learned younger is getting pushed out by this stuff I'm learning nowadays. There are ways to try and get around this. One of the big things is this retrieval augmented generation RAG. This is where you push your own data into the model and say, hey, use this data um, to augment your information. And so now it can give focused answers on your data, your company or business domain knowledge, which becomes very important. Let's say you're doing you want to build a chat bot that can talk about the products in your company. And so if you can upload a document that has all the information about your products, then it can answer very specifically about your products. Otherwise, if it was just trained on the internet and the basic, it wouldn't have information about your specific project. One of the ways to try to, with the context window being limited, if you periodically request a summary of what it's got up to that point, it will force it to kind of like bring it together and summarize it, and now that will be more in its more recent memory. So that can help. Cost. Cost of building these models are millions and billions of dollars. They take huge amount of electricity. And so building the model themselves is very expensive to build. But you're also paying for it when you call it. So if you subscribe, you know, it's what, 10, 20 bucks a month. You get a certain number of tokens. If you're paying by the token, you can get your application could run away, and you could suddenly, you know, find you're spending an awful lot of money. It also takes a lot of time to build these models, and it also takes a lot of data. So you want to plan carefully. You want to monitor your usage. Obviously, if you don't build the models, you use existing models that you know, cuts down your costs. Not all of us have the pockets of Microsoft and Google to be able to build these models. There are environmental considerations. As we say, building these models is really expensive, uses a lot of energy, high electric consumption. There's big, obviously because of that electricity, the carbon footprint is high. And then there's a lot of waste because they're developing new hardware all the time, which is kind of making the older hardware redundant, and it's just getting, you know, junked. And in addition, as we know in San Antonio, water is always a shortage, and a lot of water is used in the cooling centers, and so there are environmental concerns. And the other one is the ethics concern. We did talk about it, perpetuating and amplifying the biases, but a lot of this, the models are a black box, so we're not really sure what it's doing, why it's doing it, and you know, who's accountable for bad information. And then if we're letting the decisions kind of be made by the AI model, we're taking out the human factor on some of those things. We're also getting the displacement of a large number of workers with automation, no different than a lot of the other technologies. One of the fears is obviously delegation of life and death decisions to machines. And if you think about like autonomous cars, how does it decide what to do in the case of an accident, or you know, choices and things like that. And then the inequality of distribution of AI benefits. You know, are the people that have an access to AI. We're kind of fortunate. We have ready access to the internet, so we're all getting an opportunity to use it. And of course, the biggest one is the misinformation and deepfakes. Now you can create videos and voices that look like and sound exactly like other people. And what is truth is getting harder and harder to see. I'm going to skip through these because I want to get to some of the demos. So we want to find the good parts of AI. So this is where we should be looking at to use AI. It's great at doing repeatable tasks, reformatting data, summarizing data, taking the information in and reformatting it, making it look different, creating new data and content, ideas, questions, getting thoughts, creating test data. This is something from a programming point of view, which is kind of cool. I can create test data to push into my applications. sample copy, so we don't need lorem ipsum in all of our sample data windows. We can have content that makes sense, and just have AI create this. We saw that we could do data analytics. We can look at the results of customer surveys. We can give it a lot of pictures and have it categorized. We can have it identify things. Use cases. Oh, this list just goes on and on. There's use cases everywhere. Virtual assistants help with creative writing, analysis, business analysis, project management, learning. It's a great tool to help you learn. You can have it put together a learning plan for you. And this is some of the ways we talked. How work with AI as a collaborator or as an assistant. Have it do research for you, offload tasks to it. Note taker, you can have AI take notes from presentations like this. Sounding board, I think I use it quite a lot as a sounding board. I have an idea, I bounce it at it. When we're doing application development, we're saying, oh, should I do this? Is this a good business plan? And it gives you feedback. Like I said, repetitive tasks, look at your bottlenecks, find if there's any AI solutions for you, and then put them together. So you won't necessarily get one AI solution, but you might get little pieces of it. So let's talk about looking at the spreadsheets. Maybe I use a piece of AI to analyze the spreadsheet and put it into a different format. And then maybe another piece of AI may put that into my weekly presentation or my weekly summary report. So you can use it and piece together a workflow to make your life a lot easier. Chatbots. There's a lot of, okay, so now we're going through the examples. So there's a lot of chatbots out there. One of the things to look at, Perplexity actually does give detailed references when you ask a query. I'm going to skip over this one. Custom GPT. I don't know if anyone's done custom GPTs. If you've got a subscription to GPT, you can build your own custom GPT. So this is a GPT I built. Basically, what you do with a custom GPT, you give it some descriptions as to what this is for. I've got some conversation starters, and then I upload my own documentation. So there's a number of those out there, and then you can actually do custom app actions and things. So in this case, this was a game that does not exist yet. It's in test, and I wanted the rules easily handled, and I can then ask questions about this game called Warpath. This would not exist on the internet. Here's one that was a coloring book one. There's a lot of them out there. I asked it, I wanted a picture on me riding on a surfboard. It gives me a picture I can color in. If you can look at it, you can search. There's an awful lot of custom GPTs already out there. But you can use those for your own training or for customer support. There's a lot of people putting them out there for their tools. So image generation, ChatGPT can do image generation. We talked about this was I specified create an oil painting in the San Alamo in San Antonio, and this is the image it gave me. It does use DALL-E 3 to do the pictures behind the scenes. Midjourney is a very popular one. It's kind of a curious application. You do it in Discord. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but basically it'll give you 4 pictures, and then you can select which one you want to select. Does some great. This one was a pencil drawing of the Alamo, which very good. If you remember playing with some of these tools a while ago, the drawings were not of this quality. This application Flux was one I've just tried to do. the quality of the images are absolutely amazing. This is kind of like, and then if you have a look at it, it's beginning to get text right. Well, I don't know if people have played around with it, but text is always a challenge for picture generators, but they're beginning to get those right. The other thing that was a challenge for hands, I don't know if you ever looked at some of the AI generated pictures. The hands and the were always wrong. I think it's because most of the pictures are focused on faces and the hands are kind of all over the place, and that's what the AI models learned. Kriya is an interesting tool. It can here hedgehogs drinking coffee by a pool, and then you can start bringing in images, and it will like kind of put the other pieces around based on where you're doing the shapes. It's a curious tool, and I've never really got quite a handle on it myself. Another tool here is AI consistent character generator. This is an interesting tool if you're wanting to do pictures for, say, a storybook or something. Basically, I passed it this picture of myself, my profile picture from LinkedIn, and it gave me this picture of me, which never existed, which was actually pretty good. And so it can go basically do other people. It'll take a picture and put it in a different pose. So that's AI consistent character generator, which is kind of a fun thing to play with. Image recognition. Now, someone posted earlier that it does a good job of recognizing pictures. So I'm going to bring in a picture of an English roast, and I'm not even going to tell it anything. I'm just going to pass it to it. And it goes, look, this image appears to be a traditional roast dinner. Includes often roast potatoes. Is anything fitting? Yeah. Let's say what is in the picture. And here's we found roasted meat, roast potatoes, Yorkshire pudding, gravy, peas, carrots, cauliflower cheese, and onion rings. So I don't see onion rings there, but it's probably getting confused with the those items. It doesn't know what they're confused with the Yorkshire pudding. It does know that. And then you can do more things around the pictures. This was an interesting one I found today. This will try and recognize what you're drawing in real quick, and just seeing it. I apologize for my.
I see circle. Oh, I know. It's dumbbell. I see skyscraper. Oh, I know. It's fence. I see line. Or frying pan. Or spoon. Or guitar. Oh, I know. It's violin.
Okay, so that's kind of, what's amazing about that is it's responding as I'm drawing and interpreting the picture on the fly. So that's kind of some neat thing. There's 3D creation tools. Trying to spin through. A lot of video creation. This is kind of interesting. So I actually uploaded a picture of myself. Oh, let's see if we can see that. There we go. So I uploaded a picture of myself with a hand up, and then if I do this one, it's kind of like doing down. It's making guesses, and then so that was kind of like 3D images of a person, and it actually can do that as a starting point for doing 3D images. Design tools. There's a lot of design tools for designing applications. I put a prompt in here saying I wanted an application for an exercise tracker, and this is what it generated. It takes a minute or so. This is kind of like the GUI I did a couple of times, and these are kind of wireframe design tools that you could start with. You'll find a lot of the design tools. Figma has a lot of AI plugins. UWizard does kind of websites. Galileo .ai, sorry, wrong spelling. That one's a very, very strong tool, one of the best right now. Here's something I requested: write the HTML code for a login page. Use Bootstrap. It gave me the HTML. If I copy this into an HTML editor, it's giving me a screen. So the code generation with these tools is absolutely amazing. As a developer, we use it an awful lot. Websites, you're getting more and more Webflow, AI Web Designer. All these tools are incorporating AI in to kind of help make the starting point, and even the more detailed websites. A lot of different tools, prompt managers, and if I have time, I just want to show you just something that we've kind of been playing with. So let me real quick. You can code against the chat engine's API. Hey Chris, want lunch? Yes, but not Italian. So there's two of us having a chat here. Remember my peanut energy? And then make a recommendation. It's looking and sitting and reading the chat that we're having, and then it goes. It's giving me a recommendation based on what we've been talking to. So it's making a recommendation of Japanese or Mexican, and it knows that Chris and Richard are kind of chatting. So this is kind of a little application we wrote to experiment with multi-chats and incorporating AI within the chat. But you can see that we're basically doing the same thing as a chat, and you can talk to the AI models. And in conclusion, AI, explore it. Be careful, experiment, review. The tools are changing. It's the early stages. Things are changing. I ask you to go out and look at the tools, go play, try out the free trials and demos, but do read the small print. You don't want to suddenly find that you're giving them all your data and all your secrets. And there we go. So Susan, if
1 minute for questions, unfortunately.
yeah, I know. And if anyone wants to contact me, or we can talk more, or if there's a particular focus that anyone wants,
We can do follow-up sessions. So if you'll let us know in any of the ways, email, call me, reach out and let me know, what topics do you want to hear covered?
Yeah, it's a deep topic. I'd have to look at the sites that someone did ask about where you can get models. There's a number of sites, and then there's, if you go on Discord, there's a guy, AI guy or something. He kind of like has all these models you can download. There's a number of places. If you do a search, you can find out. People are running them on some of these models on laptops. I mean, they've got decent memory and a decent processor on it, but they are running models locally. So that's where we're moving towards, is being able to do that.
Richard did speed through the last section, but we will present this in YouTube, the recording, and Also, Richard, I'm hoping you'll share your slides with us and we can.
Yeah. And yeah, and just for your information, this is called Gamma, Gamma. It's a presentation tool, and it is kind of neat. You can actually see the whole app here, and anytime you did the pictures, most of these pictures were generated by the AI built in. They give you a number of free tokens. So I've spent most of my tokens getting a lot of these pictures. So it's kind of an interesting tool. Just a matter of playing with.
Excellent. Everyone is saying that they really enjoyed the presentation. It was quite thorough. Most of the folks have said they've learned something from it. So we will be planning the next Firecat First Friday. Not exactly sure when it is or what its topic is. So reach out if you want to see a specific topic. And thank you so much for joining us. Richard, thank you so much for this fantastic presentation.
Yep, I appreciate it.
We got to work to keep up with this stuff.
Oh, it's exhausting. It really is.
Yes. Well, we can do it together.
Yep.
All right.
Sure.
We'll see you soon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys. Bye.